Hi all, good evening. I'm Shivakumar working as a lead consultant in GAVS Technologies and leading data privacy function. I'm glad to welcome you all to the webinar on achieving business resilience with robust cyber and third-party risk management, hosted by GAVS Technologies, a leading global IT services provider with focus on AI-led managed services and digital transformation in association with MetricStream, a global market leader in enterprise governance, risk and compliance products and solutions. I would like to introduce our speakers, Sumit Sagar, product specialist from MetricStream, and Kavita Srinivasulu, head of cybersecurity and data privacy from GAVS Technologies. Over to Sumit, followed by Kavita for brief introduction.
Good evening and good afternoon to all. So my name is Sumit Sagar, and I work with, as Shiva mentioned, I work with MetricStream, and it's been 5 years in total with MetricStream, and with 10 years of experience completely into risk management, whether it is commodity trading and risk management, or bank asset and liability risk management, and now completely into operational risk, cyber risk, and third-party risk management here in MetricStream. So I work closely with the product team, understand customer requirements, market requirements, and gather all the information to make product roadmaps and take the message to the market. And it's market to product and product to market kind of a role that I handle at MetricStream. And look forward to a great conversation here. Over to you, Shiva.
Thank you, Smith, for a wonderful introduction. Kavita, over to you for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Shiva. Hi, everyone. Good evening. This is Kavita here, and I come with overall 18 plus years of experience in and around cybersecurity, data privacy, and business resilience. I have been associated with global companies like Wipro, HCL, Verizon, Bank of America, and AstraZeneca. Overall with 18 years of experience, and now with GAVS. So I'm here today with all of you to share my experience on how important is business resilience and how organizations are struggling to achieve that, and how effectively we can manage third-party risks. So looking forward for a broader discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita. Today we are here to discuss on one of the most interesting topics, achieving business resilience with robust cyber and third-party risk management. As cybercrime incidents continue to thrive across the globe, achieving cyber certainty seems to be a delusion for organizations, most of the organizations. So achieving cyber resilience, however, is not only a realistic goal, but also crucial to succeed in this digital era. An effective cyber resilience management program, it also requires integrating cybersecurity into business strategy and engaging the entire spectrum of stakeholders in the process for better decision making. So to make this session an interactive, so we would like to bring up a poll question for audience. And okay, so this is the poll question. What are your top challenges when using your current approach or solution to manage third-party risk? Please select all that apply. Lack of policy awareness and training, heightened regulatory pressure, and unstructured third-party monitoring process, all of the above. So we have 10 seconds for audience to respond. Response post, which we will discuss on the responses we have received. Okay, so can we have the response, please? So Sumit and Kavita, we have the responses here. So would you like to add specific pointers or discuss on this question?
Sure. We can probably discuss during our discussion, or I mean, all of the above is 71%, unsurprisingly, right? So yeah, all of them, and probably few more that is not listed here as well, that our audience may be facing as well, right? So yes,
Sure. I think we can cover up in the discussion which we are going to have. So let's start with our discussion. So Sumit, the third-party risk management is not a new concept yet. Yet the risks posed to enterprises have evolved to a greater extent. And increasing dependency on the third-party vendors, new privacy regulations, frequent data breaches, and shifting security threats have turned the third-party risk landscape, and the third-party risk programs must adapt to solve both security and privacy challenges. So, Sumit, what are your views of the challenges and the threats that you foresee?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So third party and whether it is IT vendor ecosystem or the supplier ecosystem, right?
Mhm.
It's extremely important for growth of any company's business. Gone are the days that in-house uh, programs and in-house tools that they were developing. They have soon realized that it is not scalable. So, and the biggest example is India's SaaS market, the way companies are mushrooming. I think last 2 years we have been talking about unicorns being born every month. If not every day. It's so drastic in terms of its growth, and that's a clear validation to the entire segment of third party vendor, and also that vendor ecosystem, because there's a market. There are companies that are providing such kind of services, and it's extremely important that we rely on our vendors to scale our business as well as to achieve our business objectives. But it's equally important to understand who do who you do your
Mhm.
business with. uh,
Yep.
so there are challenges, but at the same time, they are required for your business growth. So as security professionals, some of the challenges that I have seen our customers face are, first and foremost, is data privacy and data security, right? Let's take the example of Kaseya and SolarWinds attacks that happened.
Yeah.
Unless who your vendors are and their security, posture. What is their security posture? It's extremely difficult for you to, trust them, and you have to trust your data with them. So that's why it's
Mhm.
extremely important and you continuously monitor for these kind of risks, whether it is data privacy risk, whether it is information security risk, whether it is the entire privacy itself, and also continuous operation related risks of third parties. Again, coming back to Kaseya's example, the extent of these attacks, the extent of this event can be so catastrophic that one of the companies that had Kaseya as their vendor had to shut their 50 retail shops in Sweden. So that's the effect of rate of effect and drastic change that we're talking about. And if I have to talk about my personal experience, I think 4 to 5 months back, I got a call from a person posing to be a call center executive of one of the
Mhm.
retail e-commerce that we have, and they
Yeah.
started telling me that my account has been blocked, but to unblock, I had to click on a link, and as an apology, they have loaded my e-wallet with $2,000. And immediately I got to know that it's a fake call, it's a fraudulent call. I immediately disconnected. But it got me thinking that I was aware of the news that that company was hacked. So I also am aware of this entire cybersecurity landscape. But what about
Mhm.
the customer who is from tier 2 or tier 3 cities, or the person who's not aware of the news, or not aware of these entire landscape? The extent it can go to, it can touch the lives. It's tremendous. So it's extremely important that we are aware who we do our business
Definitely.
with, and what is their cyber security posture, and what are their policies, and whether they match with our strategy or not. And
Mhm.
to talk about the recent framework that is designed by statement that is given by FBI in the US, that at least 3 publicly traded companies who were undergoing a M&A, merger and acquisition deal, were hacked, mainly because attackers are extremely sophisticated. They are now going through their website, news articles that are coming out of these events, and they know that the company that is being acquired was probably weaker and it had one of the weak links that they could enter from, and they infiltrated the system and held some of the non-public but sensitive information in captive, and they of course asked ransom to release it. So FBI has released that. So data security is the biggest problem. So that brings me to the second challenge. What they need to be doing, what the CISOs and CIOs need to be doing to get involved in these kind of deals, whether it is M&A or getting a vendor on board for any kind of service at an early stage. Usually CISOs and CIOs are involved, and even security professionals are involved at a later stage. But get involved early, analyze if their objective or also if their security posture and their priorities are similar with that of yours, how the data is getting transmitted, what are they doing with your data, because not just the customer data that we are talking, your data that we are talking about, it is the customer data as well. Whether it is healthcare, whether it is banking, we are dealing with a lot of customer data, and especially in banking, we are dealing with customers' money, while in healthcare it is even severe. We are dealing
Crucial,
with and another example of in Oklahoma, USA, one of the oncology departments in hospital was targeted and it was attacked. So all the patient's detail was taken, and of course it was up for sale in dark web as well. So, and once any of these such activity or attack happens, for the person to identify the attack, it takes even months sometimes, and that's enough for an attacker to get through the systems and get the required data that he or she is looking for. So data security, get involved earlier, and have organizational structure and strategies, as you mentioned in your introduction. It's extremely important to get the get cybersecurity strategy aligned with your business objectives. And when that happens when there is stone at the top. That's being a huge problem. Of course, some of the boards are realizing, but in India, still there is a lot long way to go. When we realize cybersecurity becomes the key part of key strategy and business objective, and part of this business objective, and becomes a boardroom discussion. And of course, emerging technology and the skill gap, with the great resignation happening throughout the globe, cybersecurity teams are no exception to that. So there's huge skill gap, and there is emerging technology in this area. There's so much coming up, whether it is zero trust, whether it is micro-segmentation, whether it is usage of AI and ML. We can probably discuss about all these things
definitely.
later.
So yes, as
Emerging,
the emerging tech.
another aspect, another challenge that CISOs and CIOs face today. This is huge. They're interconnected in nature. They're complex. Unless you have a view of them, and what are your top risks, it's extremely difficult. For information security professionals to understand how these risks are talking to each other, and we will know only when it is out of control. Rather than that, have a view at an early stage. Have a positive risk culture, risk aware culture across the organization, because your frontline is they can be your weakest link, or they could be your defenders. So these are some of the challenges that I can think of. CISOs are facing.
Definitely, Smith. Thank you for the eye opener. Like you gave us the live experiences, which we can easily relate to and understand the importance of cybersecurity and the risk management. So one buzzword which we are often hearing is the risk awareness, gaining a 360-degree visibility. So it's a fundamental cybersecurity and IT risk management strategy that will help to protect the critical infrastructure assets and sensitive information. But the increasing complexity of distributed enterprise networks makes this extremely challenging. So, Kavita, what are the changing needs that an organization must focus upon, and who in the organization should do it, and why? So, over to you, Kavita.
Sure. So before even thinking about cybersecurity or data privacy or data security, different functionalities comes or starts from risk management, as risk management is an important aspect in any organization, as without it it is firmly not possible for for a organization to define its posture and define the objectives for the future also. If a company defines objectives without taking the risks across various aspects into consideration, chances are that there would be a loss of direction. And once these risks are going to hit home, as Sumita rightly called out about several risks in the industry that is ongoing and that is emerging on a day-to-day basis. Due to it might be various reasons are there. Might be with respect to people, process, or technology. But often the organizations just view this as a threat or as a vulnerability and avoid in planning responses effectively, and not knowing where to define the ownership and who has to own it, and what are the changes that is needed in the organization. Current models, if you see in the organization or in risk management, is do not look into different aspects or different dimensions. They only count upon RTO or RPO, more of reactive than proactively thinking from business resilience standpoint. And when we are also not only within the organization, when we are considering third parties specifically, which is highly vulnerable in nature, and the impact that the organizations are facing through supply chain are significantly high during this COVID period especially. So where there are various means of damages or issues that are arising with high vulnerabilities across the organizations. So there comes a need for optimizing the efforts and ensuring how a base governance model should be created, and the objectives should be objectives or capabilities should be defined for a proper decision making and automate the monitoring and response processes. So when we are talking about all these terms and terminologies, so where is it missing, and what are the different kinds of actions that the organizations have to take is a key word, and who owns it, definitely. So first and foremost comes when we're talking about data protection or securing the data. It is each and every individual's responsibility, and it is not like senior management owns it, or a CISO or a CTO is responsible to own the data. Myth should be cleared. Each and every individual in an organization owns the data, and they have to be liable for the information or the data that they are working on. But so how do we define that, and what does the senior management have to focus on? Definitely that's a very prime question that is being raised across the organizations, on what do we focus on, what are the actions to be taken. First and foremost is increasing awareness across the employees, because the first thing that arises, or nearly as per Gartner and McKinsey's reports that you can see, more than 80% of the cyber attacks or data breaches are occurring due to the employees awareness issues. They are not aware of what data are they working on and how important it is on what they are working. So the organizations primarily have to focus on increasing awareness, and the actions that definitely would call out based on the emerging technologies and the emerging definite different priorities that are changing on a day-to-day basis, is in automizing the efforts. nowadays, a lot of organizations or teams are having their policies, procedures, or their important requirements are managed manually. They have to definitely prioritize and automate the efforts. There are different various tools, including metric stream, that as an organization who are excelled in automation and achieving business resilience by doing by changing the current and future risks that is managed by the organizations. We will have to automate the efforts. That is another key focus area that the senior management or the CISOs or CTOs have to focus on to ensure their efforts are automized. And another key focus area that definitely the mission should prioritize and focus on is definitely on the critical infrastructure risk management. There is a lot of risk that is arising, different types of risks, be it healthcare industry or be it a financial industry. There are different types of risk management processes and methodologies that we are following to do a risk assessment and validate the impact to business, right? So when we are doing that, we will have to definitely define the processes, develop profiles, allocate budget to ensure they are assessed in a more simulated manner rather than just documenting and storing it for peace. It definitely needs a focus on in ensuring they are practicing or simulating the assessments that they are working on. The implementation is very, very important in changing the future of assets and the vulnerabilities that is arising on a day-to-day basis. And another key feature that an organization should focus on is definitely on securing their critical infrastructure. So when we're talking about securing the critical infrastructure, what are we calling out here? What are the actions that is required across the organizations? Is nothing but in creating an inventory. In creating an inventory in asset management is one of the important requirement across the organizations, because the more it is left unnoticed or not taken into accountability, are prone for more vulnerabilities and more cyber attacks. We will have to definitely create inventory and manage the assets in a very critical with a critical infrastructure to ensure the operations are well defined and they are focused on securing the critical infrastructure than to leaving it unnoticed, because all these are called out for the main reason that, if you see of the various cyber attacks or the data breaches that is occurring in the industries, are mainly due to two reasons. One is awareness, as I already called out, and second is the kind of controls that they are missing to focus on. The kind of accesses that is provided, especially to the third parties. As this subject is more on how we achieve resilience in managing third party risk, is nothing but all our organizations focus on securing our own critical infrastructure or our own assets and creating inventories, but we fail to focus on how much is our vendors are aligning to the security controls. How much are they equipped? Are they are they certified? Are they having enough security controls in place? We fail to see that from the vendors perspective. If you see if you take the example of a small or a middle based organizations, have lot of dependencies on third parties. So when we have the lots of dependencies, the kind of measures that we need to take from a risk management perspective is equivalent and is more important from enabling the access or restricting the access, and how we are enabling the firewalls, how we are automizing the efforts and ensuring the open access is not provided to the third parties, and they are assessed on a frequential basis, using multiple processes and tools in the market to ensure whatever relationship that we are developing, be it with the third parties or be it with the processes or the tools that we are working on, are completely assessed, monitored, and also documented to ensure we don't we are keeping an eye on business resilience and ensure we are being resilient in nature than to be dependent on RTO or RPO to to depend on during an incident. So that's my view, Shiva.
Thank you, Kavita, for insisting on the awareness and training, which is more as in the COVID-19 line. It's more important for every organization to make the employees aware on the latest cybersecurity trends and the challenges. So, apart from growing cyber threats, the key enablers of the cybersecurity landscape are increased demand for cloud cybersecurity solutions and demand for regulations like the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) and new products of cybersecurity which are developed using artificial intelligence and other disruptive technologies. Sumit, so what's in your view on the latest adoption of the emerging technologies?
Sure. Um, so Kavita just mentioned about how it is important to know and not allow or not give absolute credentials to your third parties. So that is when it's an awareness, of course, but there can always be human error. So that's when these technologies come into picture. Zero trust technology, right? What does that say? It says that never trust, always verify, whether it is an internal employee or a third party. So always, while training and awareness is extremely important, because they can be, whether it is a third party or your internal employee, can be the weakest link in any attack. But when we because we are talking about cyber resiliency, and cyber resiliency is not to avoid a risk, but to think it will happen. It is just a matter of time. You will be attacked. If that happens, how do I respond and how do I bounce back? So that's what a cyber resiliency is all about. And have controls in place, have policies in place, have trainings and awareness in place, so that your workers and your employees act as defenders, as I mentioned earlier, and not become the weak link. And zero trust and micro segmentation. You know,
Mhm.
Kavita rightly mentioned about firewalls and with micro segmentation. First of all, have your crown jewels protected. Once they are separate from your from your the rest of the IT assets. First of all, identification is important, awareness is important, and then protecting them is the third step. So once you do that, it's extremely important. You can have a number of tools for your cybersecurity,
Mhm.
but what is important is to evaluate the effectiveness of these tools in a continuous manner. So that's when another technology, with the help of artificial intelligence and machine learning kind of technologies come into picture. We see an AI and ML being embedded into everything. It's a part of our life now. So how do we ensure that is part of cybersecurity, risk management as well? Have that as part of your risk assessment, have that part of your control evaluation. When I say when I say that, also as part of our issue management, in MetricStream,
Mhm.
what we've done is if a user is raising any issue or risk, or it's a loss, it could be an attack. So the AI engine immediately says if any of such a risk or issue has been already been recorded. If that is the case, then what it also recommends the action plan and controls to it. So that way, your human brains can be applied for deeper analysis rather than doing the mundane job of identification, analysis, and control evaluation. Of course, we need to do that, but the
Mhm.
basic work is being done by the technology. And of course, the third one, since we are discussing about cyber resilience, if you know what is at stake, if you do not know what is at stake, it is extremely um, highly impossible for us to understand what should be the measure. So that is when cyber quantification comes into picture. So what is cyber quantification? It is to analyze your risks and give a
Mhm.
monetary value to it, and with the help of advanced technologies and advanced statistics like stress testing and scenario analysis. So of course, there is always compliance issues, there is always compliance pressure, but to turn that around and use those policies and measures and regulations to safeguard your business is should be the goal of any cybersecurity team and IT department of any company. Yeah, that's what I think.
Exactly. Kavita, what's your view on the demand for the regulations like GDPR, CCPA?
So when we're talking about the regulations and privacy acts that is globally arising, significantly. When we just take a step back and talk about privacy acts or regulations before GDPR. So before GDPR, it's not that the regulations were not there, but it didn't take the kind of significant increase that we have been seeing after GDPR release. So why is the organizations or the regulators are primarily focused on these regulations is nothing but once there was in between there was a huge conversation between the personnel and the hospitals, especially when we take the healthcare as an example. When there was a huge debate that came up, like who owns the data, because there are a lot of ransomware attacks. You should be knowing, whenever we open any media, when anything, the first thing that we can see is at least one ransomware attack across the hospitals or across the industries that is rising significantly, right? So when this came up, there came a question, who owns the data? So when this debate was happening, that's when regulators came into picture, and they to avoid this kind of confusion, they brought in privacy acts and gave it a very stringent penalties and very stringent timelines for safeguarding the personal information. The main reason behind this is if you see, if there is any personal data that is going to be exploited in the market or is going to be thefted, the kind of the cost behind it is very high. A report recently, Bloomberg Intelligence also forecasted that the kind of cybersecurity threats is expected to increase, at least 300% by 2024. Okay, a reason for this growth definitely is due to different technology. As the technology grows, the vulnerabilities definitely accompany. Be it artificial intelligence or cloud migrations or machine learning. There are a lot of rise in the cybersecurity products and the kind of advancement that we are seeing in technology. However, how do we face these risks, and why is the regulations are mandating the organizations to face this is for nothing but safeguarding the information of the individuals and ensure the kind of data that is stored in the organizations are secured with the required security controls to ensure we can reduce the cyber attacks that is increasing day by day. The major factors driving this include increasing numbers in the cyber attack. When we take the healthcare industry again as a sample, in the last 3 years, at least one attack per organization is what it is quoted, and there is still an increase, and re-attacks are also happening across the organizations, and the growing need of compliance is increasing for various and there are various upcoming regulations as well to ensure and see how much we can at least by introducing the privacy acts or the regulations, the organizations will be in a position to take extra cautious measures to safeguard the information. Because as you know, organizations fail in one point, because whenever we go for any data security or data privacy or cyber security requirements to the management, the senior management fail to understand the need in the security controls requirement until a cyber attack or a data breach happens. Because as it is, as we all know, it is they always consider that as a non-returns. So when there is no returns on investing in cybersecurity or in data privacy, why do we need to invest? That's a big question that we have across the organizations, where they fail to build appropriate processes or procedures or SOPs to fine-tune the processes and ensure whatever we are working on are under liable control measures. which is definitely a big a threat or big issue that the organization should take into consideration, and at least having these regulations and privacy acts in need, which is making it mandatory for them to consider and adhere to the protocols. So that's my view.
Yeah,
Shiva.
thank you, Kavita, for summing up on the important regulations in the industry. So we'll have one more poll question for our audience. Okay. How often should an organization perform a third-party risk management plan? Never, monthly, quarterly, yearly. So we'll have 10 seconds for audience to respond. Can we have the response, please? Okay. Kavita, would you like to add a point for this question?
Okay, I see. It's not a surprise that most of them. I'm really surprised to see it is never. 6% of us seriously feel never required. As I was quoting in the beginning, third parties or supply chain management has become one of the key risks where the CISOs are really struggling to overcome. And how important third party risk management. Third party risk management plan or monitoring or assessing their performance levels is equally important, and it is very a frequential assessment is also is required for assessing their assurance level. And I would definitely be happy to see a progress in the whole industry is looking for a progress in this platform.
Exactly, Kavita. So, okay. The risk assessments are an excellent tool to reduce uncertainty when making decisions, but they are often misapplied when not directly connected to an overall decision-making process. Like time is wasted by performing assessments when there is not a decision to be made, and when there is a lack of complete information, or when there is no understanding of the preferences of the individuals responsible for the decisions. So what is the driving risk-aware business decisions that an organization to need to begin with? Sumit, so what are the driving risk-aware business decisions?
So very, the poll results are interesting. And soon after
Yeah.
that, you brought this point of risk assessment, and that being a wastage of time if it's not done properly. Extremely true. But think about it. If it is done properly, it can give a lot of meaningful insights into your decision making, and also a lot of insights into protecting your business itself. Um, so let's talk about how it needs to be done. First of all, if the business line or the front line is not reporting the risks on a timely basis, forget about the risk assessment. If you are not even have the clear view of the risks itself, any assessment is going to fail because it's not going to be complete. So then how do you do it? You empower your front line. Let's take the example of healthcare again, that your billing desk, your finance team, your HR, your operations, everybody is your trusted partners, right, in your data security. So if any loophole that is there, if anybody clicks on a fraudulent link, the entire hospital chain, the entire data is exposed if it is not protected. So then how each risk is identified, right? One is, there is an assessment happens, all the key stakeholders come together and discuss what could be the risks, and that's how the risks are documented in most of the organizations. But if we are going to the resilience way, if we are going to the proactive way, then the only way it can be done is, let's say if there is something, if there is something malicious, if there is something abnormal it needs to be reported immediately. Of course, as as business users, or as business frontline users, or they may not know what to do with that, but they can always tell the IT team what what they're facing, or what is malicious, or what is abnormal that they're facing, and IT team can immediately plunge on to the issue and then start solving it. Because as I mentioned, it takes few days. It's like it says 298 plus days to identify a malware in the system. So if that happens proactively from everyone, whether it is within the organization and even in the extended ecosystem, imagine the the trusted environment that we will create. So risk assessment, even before risk assessment, risk identification should happen proactively, and risk assessment should happen with automated tools, like even metric stream, right? So it's everything is defined there. All users have to do is to record their observations, and if there are any issues, it immediately it takes you record the issues, and logically it moves from one step to another before even you start thinking what needs to be done next. And I also touched upon risk quantification. A qualitative risk assessment is only half true, because you don't know what to do with that next. And Kavita also exactly mentioned about how it is so difficult to convince your board on your cyber investments. And but if you have risk quantification done, and board really understands the monetary value, so give them that, and tell them what what is at cost if it is not protected properly. And it's not only to convince the board and optimize and prioritize your investments, but also to negotiate your cyber insurance prices. So it's extreme. So risk assessment is one, the entire process is one, but how do you use the results of it? And when you get the results, when you quantify it, and with the help of reporting and analytical tools that is there in the market, so you quantify them, you analyze them, you also know what are the top 10 risks. Of course, third party cybersecurity risks should be one of the top 10. Otherwise, you will get into these kind of troubles of reactive cybersecurity. So that's the reason risk assessment needs to be done properly. And it does provide business insights and actionable insights for your business priorities and business strategies, and of course your cyber investments as well. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what I feel.
Sumit, so Kavita, do you have any different views or any other views on this, on the risk assessments?
I would agree with Sumit, and one thing, as already quoted, we all have to keep in mind is risk is just not the responsibility of security team or the executives or the CISO or CTOs. Risk management or identifying a risk is each and everyone's responsibility, and this cannot happen overnight. Definitely, building a successful or a a very robust risk culture is definitely need to be done in a phased manner, where it has to consider both its implementation and its assessment, and its ongoing nurturing has to or do deserve attention of the entire organization, not limiting to one or two teams, which everybody feels. If there is any risk that is identified, individual just routes it to the security team and says it's security team's responsibility, and why should I be bothered? No, that shouldn't be the kind of decision or the kind of mindset that we all have to have. Each and everyone is responsible, and the recommendations definitely to implement this effective culture across the organizations, which based on my experience I would share, is we all have to when we are doing a risk assessment, it has to be done holistically, covering not only what is happening within our organization, but also ensuring we are also considering environmental risks and also third-party risks as well. We will have to do a third-party risk third-party risk assessment on an ongoing basis to ensure we are not only safeguarding or protecting our own security controls, but we are also ensuring to enable the security controls on the third-party sites as well. And we will have to always utilize an effective risk tolerance approach in ensuring whatever risks or risk metrics that we are defining is communicated in a very stringent and realistic manner than to just embed to reinforce on the same set of protocols that is getting defined and just documented. Instead of just documenting it, we will have to ensure it is implemented, assessed effectively, and simulated also to check what is the effectiveness of the assessment that we have completed. So that's my view, Shiva.
Thank you, Kavita. Sumit, as Metric Stream is the market leader in GRC, I would like to touch on GRC. So GRC is a well-established practice. GRC includes an organization's governance and compliance management strategies alongside risk management. IRM, on the other hand, is focused primarily on managing cybersecurity risk to the organization that can include governance and even regulatory risk. So, what does an organization focus to move towards the integrated risk management?
Very relevant question. So, as you put it, so in IRM, you are looking at everything from risk's point of view. So whether it is cybersecurity, whether it is compliance, whether it is operational or enterprise, and even third party and audit and everything. So you are looking at all these elements of GRC, so to say, because that's the overarching area. You're looking at all these elements from risks angle. So that is when you'll be able to kind of look at it holistically. So I want to actually give an example of Metric Stream, how we look at IRM, implementing IRM with on our customers' premises. It's we believe that, as Kavita mentioned, whether it is the implementation of culture or IRM, it has to be done in phases. It cannot happen overnight. People have to be ready. So that depends on the strategy, the priority, the maturity, and the scale of each company, right? So some companies are maybe at a position that they just can and want to manage risk. When I say can and want to, they want to just identify, analyze, report, define controls, and just keep doing that as an activity, as a compliance checklist maybe. So, but as the company grows, you start embracing risks. You know that, okay, this is what it's going to be, and how can I utilize these risks? And when I say risk, and having a single platform is extremely beneficial, because a federated data model probably can have all your risk data, whether it is third party related risks or operational related risks, cyber related risks, compliance, non-compliance related risks, and related controls are all mapped and stored in a centralized manner. And if a cybersecurity team is looking at it, or third party procurement team is looking at it, you exactly know what are your top risks, and at an organization level, at a function level, and at a process level as well. So IRM, it talks about bringing the data together and looking at it holistically. And once company is ready to embrace risk, that is when it can plunge on to the next level, that is thrive on risk. That is what is cyber resilience, achieving cyber resilience. We know that we already spoke about it. Absolute security is absolutely impossible. We know that. And third party and your third party and your now ESG is a top risk as well. And your cyber security, all these are crucial. Managing these risks are crucial to your business. So that these risks have to be managed. And with that, how do I map it to my business strategy? How do I map it to my business objective? And I convert my risk into my opportunity to safeguard my crown jewel, safeguard my my operations, and still I continue to be operational even in the time of disruption. And because one risk can, it could come across as a cyber risk or third party risk, but the impact it can have on reputational risk, on operational risk, on compliance risk, in terms of paying fines to regulators, it can have multi-dimensional. And with extended enterprise, so one of our customers wanted to even safeguard fourth parties. So what we did to them is we implemented a system that can take care of the third party as well as fourth parties, because you cannot know where the where the attacker is coming from, where the weak link is. So they wanted to
Yeah.
be extra sure, because they are a global payment gateway company. So they wanted to be extra sure. And we also implemented AI and ML enabled SOC2 and SOC3 report review. So what it does is, so you, as security teams, we want to be sure that they are also equally are prioritizing their security posture as us. So there are a lot of security reports that you would want to review on a timely basis. So, but going through these reports of thousands of vendors quarterly or even yearly is going to it's going to be time taking, and there is a chance of human error. So what we did, we implemented AI enabled report review that immediately listed all the anomalies and exceptions to the SOC report. And it was so easy for the customer. It is still it is so easy for the customer now to manage their third parties and fourth parties. So when it is integrated risk management, it is not just the view, but how all these business objectives, whether it is at function level, at corporate level, how they're all coming together, and how we are looking at everything from risk's point of view, and then convert that risk into business opportunity, and we start thriving on risk. And what I mean by that is, you do not have any disruption that happens in the market will not hamper your business in a long run. And if you are not able to prevent it for any reason, you are in a position to respond with better response strategies, and bounce back and stay operational no matter what, by maintaining your integrity, your customers integrity, and your stakeholders integrity as well. That's what IRM is all about.
Thank you, Sumit. So thanks for the detailed explanation on the GRC. Okay, we have one interesting question from audience. So the question is, how should we restrict third-party applications from accessing data which it is not supposed to access? So Kavita, would you like to take a call on this question?
Sure, thanks, Shiva. So that's a good question. As as I said, primarily majority of the cyber attacks or the issues are arising from the supply chain or the third party vendors. So how do we restrict the access is definitely one of the main mitigation is to enable access, the right level of access that needs to be provided to the third parties. It has to be always privilege based, or it has to be having a restricted access for the third parties. And second is, we will have to definitely ensure we ensure they are having the kind of the endpoint security is enabled, and the level of accesses required are well authorized, and there is a firewall that is enabled in between between both the networks to ensure there is a toll gate for any kind of accesses that the vendor needs to get for continuing his activities. But the three things that that I would summarize is, first is ensure they have restricted accesses are enabled for the vendors or the third parties that they are working with, and enable endpoint security. And the third is ensure there is a complete a firewall is definitely enabled between both the networks for enabling security controls. So that's my hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Kavita, thank you so much for addressing that question. So we have one more question. What are the most common gaps in enterprise risk management? Sumit, would you like to take on this?
Sure. Uh, So when it comes to enterprise risk management, again, if we are talking about data ownership, enterprise risk is, we are uh, pooling in, all kinds of risks. Whether, as I mentioned, it is HR related, it is operational, um, cyber security and cyber governance, and also your policy and compliance and legal team, etc. So the biggest issue is who owns what kind of risk. So compliance related risks should be owned by the compliance department, while it is also a risk, and it is non-compliance is a risk. So it is part of the risk management, enterprise risk management, ownership. So there is always a tug of war between the data ownership and also overall ownership of it. So identifying these ownerships early on will be really helpful. That way cybersecurity is very clear, what they own in terms of risk management. But others, there is still, who the decision making lies with whom. And as we again mentioned, the culture, right? um, the positive risk culture is extremely important, and that is the biggest challenge of any risk management department's challenge. So that is a biggest challenge. And third challenge with respect to data, what I can see is synchronization between the data, the quality of data. We discussed about risk assessment. So how do we know the data that that has been assessed, the risk that has been assessed, the data that has been inputted is reliable or not? And there's so much of, and we are talking about data relating to third party. So how do we manage the big data and the quality of data? That is another challenge with respect to and also biggest gap when it comes to ERM. And with the help of tools and technologies, and with the help of proper governance in place, proper policies in place, these gaps can be mitigated.
Addressed. Yes. So, Sumit and Kavita, we are towards the end of the webinar session. Really, it was an interesting one, like where we had touched upon GRC and good knowledge. You both have provided us the good knowledge on GRC and the third-party risk management. And thank you everyone for taking out the time to attend this webinar. I believe through this webinar, everyone would have gotten a fair understanding on the third-party risk management. We will come up with other such important and interesting topics soon. Meanwhile, if audience have any queries which have to be addressed by Kavita or Sumit, you can write to us at inquiry@gavstech.com, and we will respond to you if you have any queries. So once again, thank you. This is Shivakumar. Please stay safe, and thanks for joining the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.